welcome. This is Erica Glessing, and I'm just so joyful to have you here with me today on the Erica Glessing Show, where you receive 8 minutes of inspiration for both entrepreneurs and lightworkers. And my next guest is such a joy to be around, but sometimes I imagine she's not that joyful to be around for some people who go up against her in the courtroom. So welcome, Susan Guthrie, one of the top divorce attorneys in the United States of America. How are you, Susan?
I am very good and very happy to be here, Erica. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just so excited too to tell people about your new show and how you're educating people about divorce. And we'll let people know a little bit more about the show in a minute. But I'm curious about when you look at divorce, you see so many mistakes that people make. Tell us a little bit about some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when they're divorcing.
Well, you're right, Erica. That's a great question because after doing this for almost 30 years, you start to see patterns emerge in how people approach their divorce or how they work through that process. And, you certainly do see people making different, people but making the same mistakes. Things like, I would say one of the number one mistakes I see people make is being set on having to keep the house. I have people who walk through the door the very first day without knowing anything really about how their finances are going to end up at the end of the divorce, how this is all going to play out, but they are absolutely adamant that they have to keep the house. And that's usually a pretty expensive asset. So sometimes that doesn't turn out to be the right way to go. But if you've got your mindset there, and you plan your whole strategy toward that, it can be a real difficulty for people.
That's so fascinating because I gave up the house, but you know what I did? I said, okay, you can have the house, which wasn't doing that great at that time, as far as what its net worth was. But I said, you have to be out of all of my books and all of my business. And so any book revenues or anything that happens from anything I wrote while I was married, I excluded him from all future earnings. So it was kind of an interesting choice that I made to give up one thing, but keep the thing that to me kind of meant the most. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And that ties in. I tell every single divorce client that I have that your peace of mind has a dollar sign attached to it. And only you know how much your peace of mind is worth. And sometimes that means you're going to pay a little more or give up something like the house that maybe had either emotional ties or financial ties to it. But you identified and singled out what was important to you, what was important to your peace of mind or to your soul, and you got that for yourself. And that's actually one of the most important things that I think everyone needs to consider when they go through the divorce process.
That is just so fascinating. I can't not say the name of your show. I'm so excited about it. Breaking Free, a modern divorce podcast. It's just having rocket launching. It's going up, and every single day I go and look, and there's like more downloads and more listens. And you even did a show about pets this week.
We did, and we've been getting a really fantastic response to that show. But overall, we've just been thrilled with the response to the show. Rebecca Zung, my co-host, and I are trying to bring all of our years of knowledge and all of these inside tips and insights into the divorce process to the population at large, because this isn't what your average person does every day, but we've been doing it every day for, I hate to say, but about 50 years between the two of us.
I know. I love Rebecca too, but for anyone who's listening, you can also listen to Rebecca Zung on this show. I interviewed her right before her show was going to come out. Let's go back. Tell me a story about a divorce that's like a funny or an unusual thing.
Oh gosh, I have, again, after doing this for so long, I have a file full of these, but the first one that pops into my mind is, because gray divorce or divorce among older couples, which is actually another short show we just did recently with Sue Ferreira, but gray divorce is on the rise, people getting divorced later in life. And I had one couple it was, I think, my first divorce where the parties had been married for, I think in that case, it was 43 years.
Oh my goodness.
And he came into my office, he was my client. And it turns out that what brought them to that point was he had been a fireman and worked the day shift for almost their entire married lives. And she actually worked in the prison system, and she worked the night shift.
Oh
And
God.
so for the 43 years of their marriage, other than the times they got together to have 3 children, they had been working completely opposite schedules. And then he retired, and he came about 6 months into that. He came into my office, and they ended up finding out that they just didn't have very much in common anymore. I don't know if they ever had. They were very different people. He was
Wow.
delightful. He was
Yeah.
delightful, but it was
I
my
don't think
first.
that's that uncommon. I know when my dad retired from teaching, that led to a divorce.
Did it really? Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
his wife is his second wife. He was just home all the time, and
Well, I've heard that complaint,
gone.
certainly. Yeah,
He'd
yeah.
been gone, and so now all of a sudden he's around. He's fussing. He's
He's
knows
underfoot.
everything. He's high maintenance. Probably wanted more meals cooked.
Yeah.
He's older. He's like
Not
almost
helping out around the house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, you look at like that, that's so curious. And one of the things that shows up for me really I want to get into this just because of my own personal background. What so many times it seems like one of the parties doesn't represent themselves well, or doesn't stand up for themselves. Like I have 3 kids, and one of them stands up for herself pretty well, but my son, he just won't stand up for himself. Like he won't, do you know what I'm saying? Like he won't ask for what he needs at school, or he just doesn't have that. It's like a missing gene or something.
Right.
So
That self-advocacy.
what do you recommend when someone is just not very good at standing up for themselves?
Well, it depends on the situation, but if they are in a traditional divorce situation, that the representative or the attorney is really that person who's there to advocate for them. That is the attorney's role. But the most important part is that the client still needs to be very clear with their attorney what it is their objectives are, or what it is they want, going back to that peace of mind factor. And many people are just not very good at identifying for themselves as they sit there in that whirlwind of emotion that's going on in divorce. Most people are just wallowing in that emotion, and they're not thinking clearly as to what their end goal is, what their end game, where would they like to be at the end of this process? Because divorce is a process. It is not a permanent place in time. You're going to get to the other side. What do you want that to look like? And so for those who need advocates, they still need to let their advocate know what it is that they want to be, or where they want to be on the other side. Yeah.
So I'm going to take it back to the show. For your podcast about divorce, tell me a little bit about how you guys think of one of the questions I get asked from people looking for podcasts is, how do I find good guests? And I've really been blown away by the quality of your guest selection. They seem just amazingly competent and interesting.
Yeah, well, we are lucky, but I think part of that goes back to these are having been immersed in the world of divorce and being, Rebecca and I for a long time have handled really high net worth cases, meaning our clients had the funds available to finance expert witnesses that you may not run into on your average daily case. And now as we're doing the podcast, we can reach out to those experts who in many cases are worldwide, well-known, renowned experts in the field. And they're willing to come on and share their knowledge that our clients paid, trust me, thousands and thousands of dollars for, and they're sharing that with our podcast listeners. So we're very lucky in that respect because we have a pretty broad base of people. And again, because we've done it for so long, we know, what information would be helpful to people, what they might not have access to otherwise. So that's what we're trying to bring out.
Right. Well, it's just been so much fun having you here today. Time goes so fast on my little show.
It does. It
tell,
does.
tell us first how to find the podcast. Tell us the name again, and
It's
then tell us how to find you.
absolutely. The podcast is Breaking Free, a modern divorce podcast, which is available on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, and all regular and major outlets for podcasts. And then I can be found on through my website, which is divorceinaBetterWay.com.
I love it. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Erica. I appreciate it.